Welcome back to Brian's Run Pod. Now, for a change, what I've decided to do is to split Caitlin's interview into two parts. The first part, we talk about what prompted her to get into running, specifically the life-changing event that set her on this path. In the second podcast, which will feature in a couple of weeks' time, we'll talk about her new career. I know Caitlin will really hate me for saying this as a life coach, or rather a mind coach. What have been the challenges and the different types of audience she's had to deal with? I really hope you enjoy this discussion as much as I have. And let's start with the first part of our discussion. So you're thinking about running, but not sure how to take the first step. My name's Brian Patterson, and I'm here to help. And welcome to Brian's Run Pod. Welcome to Brian's Run Pod today. My guest today is Caitlin Limmer, who I would describe as being the running Pied Piper of Twickenham. A life-changing moment in 2004 where her husband was told that she only had 40 minutes to live due to a rare blood cancer has shaped her philosophy of life. It's all about grabbing every opportunity life has thrown. She has been an opera singer, actor, life coach, and not forgetting a running coach. She says, and I quote, "The people come first, the running comes a very close second." Caitlin, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning. What a privilege this is.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Well, I know this is a running podcast, and I know we'll get on to what you're doing now. But first of all, I know I briefly touched on it in your introduction, but how did you get into running?
Oh, well, I got into running. The story is very plain and simple.
Yeah.
I was very ill,
yeah.
As you mentioned, and I was given 40 minutes to live, and many people know that story now. A long time ago now, 19 years ago. And as a result of it, my body was a little bit shot. I was told that my bone density was going to be a real issue in my life.
Yeah.
And in my naivety at that time, I thought, bone density, what does that mean? How can I help myself? And I thought, running, that's what people say, build your bone density. So that is how I literally started. I had a year to try and change my bone density before I was going to have this next scan. And I wanted to prove to this wonderful woman that had saved my life that we could counteract it and that I could make it better. So that's how I started. And, I hated it. I still do. Love, hate. And
ditto.
I think that's a story for many people. And then I fell in love with what it was giving me. So so that's kind of the moment I laced up my trainers and got on the road really properly.
Now, I know you've said, I know this is sort of jumping about a bit, but I know you said that you trained as an opera singer. Did that help you in any way in terms of what your journey you're about to embark on, or not?
So I think at the time I didn't recognize it, but I totally recognize now that singing and running give you very similar end results. In that you get a great big high from singing, using that oxygen, working together. I was in chorus of many operas, and it's discipline, it's camaraderie, it's community, it's working hard towards a goal. So all of those things, I definitely replicate in running. Beyond that, there are quite a lot of similarities anyway, but they're the immediate ones I can think of. But obviously, opera singers in my day, which was, 25 years ago now, were not fit, not into exercise necessarily. I could be making a rather sweeping statement, but in my day, I never saw many people that were really into exercise. And now, of course, I'm sure that actors and opera singers, have to be far more health-minded. And, the stronger we are for everything, for shows or for running 5Ks, the better.
So in those early years, I say, this started in 2004. What was it that kept you going? I mean, obviously, you've kind of embarked on doing more exercise. I mean, there must have been something.
Yeah, I know. I think, when you start running, and once you've done it for more than a few weeks, you start gaining the benefits. And those benefits just never stop coming. Once you've got into that habit, and, you reap the reward every single time. And then you start pushing that comfort zone out. You go from your 5K to your 10K, and more confidence comes. And that has a knock-on effect in something else you're doing in your life. And so, the challenge for me then became I thought, gosh, I want to run the London Marathon, as many people do. And I thought, my father had died when I was 20, and he had died at a wonderful hospice called the Princess Alice Hospice. And I thought, gosh, I want to run the London Marathon and pay them back for, he'd been in there 6 weeks, which these days, of course, is highly unusual. And he didn't have money. So, we couldn't give them much at the time. And I thought, I want to, give them some money. And so I got a place for Princess Alice. And I also wanted to send a photo, that finish line photo that you get from the London Marathon. I wanted to take it to this lady, this wonderful woman who's still in the profession, called Miss Girling, who had saved my life at Westmid. Well, she'd saved my life by saying she couldn't help me anymore and by sending me to someone else. But I wanted to take her that photo. So there were two reasons. So, the goals. And then, I just, fell in love with it. And it became such a passion that I thought, I've got to give this to other people now. So for me, it went from first mile to change of career to 20 years later, I'm talking to you about it, which still makes me laugh. Oh, what am I doing here?
Just going back to that particular event, what was it? Because I know you've mentioned it a couple of times. What was it that who or what event was it that changed your life at that time? Because especially your husband being told this, it's very much like Nicky Lauda giving the last rites. But he had that determination to get back to going back into the Formula One World Championship. That's the only thing I can think of on the top of my mind. But what was it that basically saved your life?
What was it? Literally, it was pioneering new surgery.
Right.
I can be found in the medical books now. Which
okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I got a letter that was requesting my say so that I could be put in the medical books. So at the time, and I shan't go into a great deal about it, but I had I burst 6 arteries, and they basically glued them back together in pioneering new surgery, and they hadn't. I don't think they'd done it before. And they literally said to me when I sort of came back around, I mean, saying that, I was actually awake for this surgery but I'd had several operations in the previous days before where I hadn't been awake. So I was completely out of it, really. But they couldn't put me under again because I'd had too many operations. But 24 hours later, when I came back around and the consultant came and saw me up in a hospital up in London when I'd been blue lighted up there, and he just said to me, look, we're going to have to keep our fingers crossed. And it's part of a talk I give now. I remember this man standing there over my face saying, all right, Caitlin, hello, Caitlin, you're all that, and he literally crossed his fingers over my face. And I remember thinking,
wow.
Mate, that's my life in your little crossed fingers there. Yeah, let's just keep our fingers crossed, shall we? Yeah, let's do that. And a whole heap more if it's all right with you. But he didn't know, he didn't know whether it was going to work. And at the time, I didn't realize how close to the edge I'd been. I remember having recollections afterwards where, as you said with your other story, I had the memory of two wonderful people, one of whom became a very best friend of mine, a South African minister. I remember he came to my hospital bed with his wife, and let's just say they came and visited me. But subsequently, actually, he was, as I say, a man that became one of my best friends. He was also a runner, and he taught me to love running as well. And he taught me a whole heap more in other ways as well. But he was pivotal in my life in running, and actually the other career that I've now taken in coaching. It was a love of people. He helped me he just had that same love of people.
I mean, I've known you, a long time, and you've always been a really sort of inspirational and quite positive person. But have you always been that way? Or is it that, like you say, like life-defining event that completely changed your attitude towards what you were going to be like going forward? Or did that come at a later stage?
No, I think, I was never, I think I was always quite positive and go-getting, but, to a degree, but I totally know that this illness was something that made me just go, whew, you better crack on, love, because within the year, I was also diagnosed with a blood cancer, separate to this event. And I was also told within that year, it will be transplant, it will be chemotherapy. And, so it was these moments, and you hear them over and over again from people having illnesses. But it really did make me think, right, love, you got to crack on. And I still do, because I still have this blood cancer. Thank goodness it's not done what they thought it would do. But, I'm always told by them, it's watch and wait. Transplant has happened to every, the majority of other people that have got this condition. And, that's always been the road that I've been told I would be going down. Is it my positive mental attitude? Is it the fact that I've been in a career of sport and health for 20 years that has sort of paused to this? I don't know. Probably.
So you said that you wanted to give something back, and you so you thought, well, let's start the Bearcat Running Club. And I know it's named after the pub, is that right?
It's named after my husband's comedy club.
Comedy club, that's right. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. That's all right. So, based at the pub.
Yes. So how did that kind of come about? Obviously it's a little, an idea, a germ of an idea.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it came about. I'll tell you exactly how it came about. I'd been sort of I had group after group each week of people, or not each week, each day, of more and more people that I was sort of helping with running. We turned up one day at Gunnersbury 10K, and there were loads of us. And one of my runners won the female event, which was amazing. And we all went to the pub afterwards, and people said, we want to be part of something, Caitlin. People keep saying, who do you run for? And we can only just point at you and go, yeah, it's that loud ginger bird over there. That's who we run for. Yeah. We run for her. And they said, we want to be part of something. And, and again, I speak about this, and the words running club fill me with fear. And, and not that they aren't brilliant, but there's a terrible assumption that I even myself make about running clubs. And, I thought, well, I don't want to set up a running club, God, I've avoided that kind of thing all my life, really. Well, I just thought they weren't for me. But of course, I thought, well, hang on, I could set up something a little bit different that's not just about league tables and competition. And please don't get me wrong, I have the utmost respect for that area. But it wasn't my forte. Still isn't my forte. Isn't my passion. My passion is the everyman. It's teaching the person, I would say it's the sort of the London Marathon of running clubs, for everyone. For the person that wants to, just do their first marathon and walk it. For the person that still wants to kill 3.5 hours. Yeah, we've got that as well. But I wanted to sort of fill a possible gap I saw in the market. I mean, to be honest, I wasn't as clever as that. I wasn't thinking that specifically. I just thought, I want to provide an environment that was nurturing. And
it's funny you should say that, because the guy who started Park Run had the same philosophy. And
of course.
He said, and doing some research, and I sort of did a podcast about him, and basically he was injured, he lost his job, and he was going through depression. But the thing he did love doing was running with his friends. And that's how he started Park Run at Bushy Park. So, and he didn't want to do the running club thing or whatever. Although he was a good runner, but he just wanted to run with his friends. Yeah,
and Paul and Joanne, who you're referring to there, they are friends and heroes of mine. And he very kindly once said, I think we must have caught him in a vulnerable moment, but he said, and I've got it on camera, he said, if Park Run was a running club, it would be Bearcat Running Club, which was right. And I went, right, we'll keep that in the can. We'll have that. We'll take that. I'm talking about it 8 years later, or however many years later, because it was so flattering that he said that he could see that was what I was trying to do. And he, has been a wonderful, gentle mentor of mine for many years. He is a very beautiful man, and my goodness, what him and his wife and his team have achieved, just miraculous. How many lives he's changed and continues to change. And I just, again, he was rather like my South African minister, real shining lights to me, real huge mentors, whether they knew it or not.
Amazing, the success. And also in your own way, the success that you've had locally. Do you think you're a bit of a minor celebrity? I don't say it. I like that. Sounds very disparaging. But I mean, it's sort of like a sort of a local celebrity, in this area.
Yeah. Well, you know what? How can I possibly answer that question? how do we define local celebrity? No, I mean, no. I wrote something down about that. No, I don't. I, not at all. Not at all. I just see myself as someone that has got the most tremendous amount of people that I know and love and care about. And I have a gene in me that winds a lot of my family up because I know it doesn't at all. But I just, I just genuinely love people.
Yes.
I find people fascinating. I find, it matters to me that every person gets equal merit, gets equal attention. And, I truly, and again, it's something I've spoken about for many years. I think we all have something to teach each other, whether it's positive or negative, and sometimes it is negative, but then we learn from that as well. And every time I meet someone, I want to know what's that thing I've got to learn from them, and it's, I just genuinely find people fascinating, and I enjoy learning from people.
Yeah. I mean, it's something I've learned in recent years, that we can learn as much from our failures as our successes. If not, they talk about this kind of growth mindset, but it's very much, I think that's just as important. So let's kind of push it on a bit. How did you get on this journey as becoming a life coach?
Well, I've been thinking about coaching, so I'm gonna take away the word life coaching from this, and it's only because people make such assumptions about what a life coach is. And they sort of see nice plant pots behind my, or on graphics, and that it's all a bit airy fairy. And I want to I'd love to blast that assumption away from this conversation. For me, going into coaching was a natural progression. I dealt with the body, and I deal with the body through the mind. And I wanted to learn more about how to allow people's mind to grow as much as the body. And again, it was a continuation of my love of people, a love of wanting to see people achieve, and to overcome the hurdles that were stopping them achieve. I take my coaching really seriously. It's actually very different from running coaching. With running coaching, I'm an educator. There are facts and figures of how we learn to run, and you can give people advice. With coaching, predominantly, it is my role to help people find their answers. Yes, a lot of people come to me thinking, oh, we're going to ask Caitlin. Caitlin will know the answer. Caitlin will be able to point me in the right direction. There can be elements of that. But I always say to clients, I can give you my answer, but my answer is not your answer. I have not lived the life that you have led. I have not had the experiences you have had. Therefore, it's a collaborative process. So my coaching is good questioning. It's challenging where necessary. And it is down to whatever the client wants, and it's variable. It can be relationship issues. It can be, I want to write a book. It can be, I want to, transition from the corporate world into, starting my own business. It is multifaceted, and it is an utter privilege to do. I love it. And when I went into it, I remember the first sort of time I started on the course, and they said, you could have people from Shell, the MD of Shell. And I was like, what? How on earth can I coach the MD of Shell? Yeah. And now I'm like, yeah, bring it on. Bring it on. We are all human. We all have the same issues, believe it or not, So just sharing in these conversations with people and seeing them achieve. What an utter privilege.
That's it for another episode, and looking forward to speaking to you next week with some beginner hints and tips about running. I just want to let you know that you can follow me on X, or what was known as Twitter, at Brian's Run Pod. I have just recently set up a Facebook page which is called Brian's Run Pod, and I am on Instagram at Brian's Run Pod. Also, my website is www.briansrunpod.co.uk, where you can get show notes, or on whatever podcasting app you are listening to the show. Plus, all my episodes have chapter markers if you need to get to different segments of the show. Plus, leave a review, as it will help others find this podcast. Music is Happy Day by Stock Audio, not forgetting artwork by Alice Patterson. Till next week, thanks again for listening.